Hey friends, Peggy Hall back with you live streaming. I'm from thehealthyamerican.org and today is Thursday. It is August 10th, 2023. So many of you tuned in for my live coverage of the Maui wildfires. And isn't it interesting? Some of you, oh my gosh, you gave me such great comments. And somebody said, isn't it interesting that there are wildfires in a rainforest? Yeah, a lot of things don't add up. I'm going to be doing a video for you tomorrow with a deep dive on everything that doesn't add up. So email support@thehealthyamerican.org if you have anything that you'd like to share, any videos, any insights. If you live on the island, if you know anybody who's there, we would love to have your eyewitness information. Now, one thing that doesn't add up for me, I'll give you a little sneak peek, and then we're going to talk about the 12 toxic side effects that the New World disorder, as I call it, applauds. And that's because it hits so many of their desires for this build back better. Before we dive in, I do want to bring you a message from the sponsor. My other videos, I did not have any sponsor message because it was happening, breaking news, and I didn't want to, dive into that. But I do want to thank the sponsor. And this is especially important for you if you are planning on being prepared for any eventualities. This is a message for you if you are interested in investing in precious metals. I'm not the expert, but my friends over at Noble Gold Investments, they are the experts. Give me 30 seconds here and I will share my screen. Let me hop right on over. I've been telling you about this company. They've been with me for a long time and I've been with them. So you want to call 877-646-5347 to speak to an American in the United States who will answer your questions. And I know the owner of this company. I vouch for this company. So what you need to know is that the US dollar has lost about 85% of its value since the 1970s. That means your dollar is worth 15 cents today if you had it in the 1970s. And it looks like it's going to be worth a lot less if the government keeps raising all of the interest rates and actually printing as much money as they want to. The last time they did that, inflation went up 9%. Gold, luckily, is one asset that has been proven to withstand inflation. So if you are interested in investing in gold with Noble Gold Investments or investing in other precious metals, I want you to give them a call or go to this website. You will also get a 24 karat, 1/4 ounce gold standard coin for free if you qualify. Remember, there's always a risk of investment. There's no guarantee of any kind, but go to noblegoldinvestments.com. I'll have a link for you below. Get your questions answered, and they will help you get started on this journey. Friends, let's talk about the 12 toxic side effects of these raging wildfires, not just in Maui, which basically is a rainforest, but all over that we've seen in different countries, in states that normally don't get this type of wildfire. I mean, what's next? Are we going to have hurricanes in Kansas? Probably. And it will be blamed on global swarming. That's how I call it. So let's do this. I want to just dive in. There probably are more than 12, but these are the top 12 side effects of these disastrous events that I believe are enhanced and modified, even created and orchestrated, definitely sensationalized to fit the agenda. And listen to this. I'm going to bring you a deep dive on the new governor of Hawaii. His name is Josh Green. He's not Hawaiian. And he is a United Nations darling. He is all about the sustainable, the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm going to bring you, he was just at the UN conference a couple of weeks ago. And he was talking about how he is going to infuse these sustainable development goals into every aspect of the policies in the state of Hawaii. So isn't it just a little bit curious that right on the heels of this United Nations agenda that he is talking about, he's a little bit behind in some of the areas. Well, guess what? They are going to take off like a rocket ship that doesn't exist to skyrocket. I'll just use that phrase, a hop, skip, and a jump for Hawaii to make it on the top 10 list of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals list of the valedictorian list, the darlings there. I'm going to bring that to you in another video, and I'm going to show you the websites in Hawaii that he is pushing, and it's all got all the United Nations all over it. So you know that the New World Disorder wants everybody to be one world government, one world religion. If you read the Bible or you've heard about the Bible, you'll see that that is in there as well. So here are the 12 toxic side effects that the New World Disorder is applauding, because it moves these so-called sustainable, which really are unsustainable development goals. So number one, and we've seen it, friends, I've done videos on this already. I'll leave you links below. So this is not my first video on the fires. I've done many videos on fires over the years, so I want you to study those as well. I've got a fire playlist. And what these fires do is they promote the global swarming theory. You hear it from the transcasters. From the newscasters. You know my sense of humor. It's not that funny. Here's what they say. The planet is on fire. We must get rid of fossil fuels that don't come from fossils. And you have to limit your driving. That's one of the things on the sustainable development goals. The number of miles that people drive, that has to be reduced. That's what they're going to do in Hawaii. And of course, we must raise taxes and send you back to the Stone Age. And we're going to shield the sun because it is too hot. I checked the weather report in Maui for the subsequent days that were leading up. It was natural, normal. What I understand, it was in the 80s. They were having their rain showers daily. So it was very suspect to me that this could happen. And I know what the mainstream media merry-go-round is promoting is that there were high winds from Hurricane Dora. I'm going to bring you a story about Hurricane Dora. And by the way, let me just say, I don't get offended easily, but I am offended that by the fact that these hurricanes are named after people. I think that's horrible. I think it's bullying. I think it's targeting people. I have a lovely, healthy American, Katrina. And of course, there was the devastating Hurricane Katrina. And there are others. Many of you may have names that are associated with these devastating events. It's like, I don't think that's right. Can't they just call it 23, we're in the year 2023. You could have 23A, 23B, 23C, and then you would know what year it is. And it's not going to malign anyone by associating their name with this devastating event. I don't care for that at all. That's a separate issue, but they are going to tell you that you have to live in your 15-minute cities because all of these disastrous events were caused by you personally, driving too much, drinking out of a plastic straw, using toilet paper, and anything else that they don't want you to do. All right. So that's one of the things that the New World Disorder is applauding when they see these, or maybe they are involved in these devastating events. All right. Number two, these events spew toxic chemicals into the air that can then be blamed for other physical maladies, such as, maybe some heart conditions, maybe cancer, maybe skin eruptions that, of course, never would have come from the cooties or cocktail. None of those could ever be associated with that. So they will have a very good cover story for people getting ill. And it's likely that more people will get ill from these toxic chemicals. Here's a question I have for you. All of these wildfires, which are not in the wild, which are in downtown city areas, yet in California, we are told that we are not to burn wood in our fireplace because that could harm other people. Yeah, I'm responsible for a wood burning fire for the child's asthma down the street. Certainly not because she's a human pincushion. It's my burning wood in the fire. Yet you've got acres and acres and acres of things burning into the air, yet we're told we cannot have a fire, nor are we allowed to have we used to just call them a beach fire. Right on the beach, because global swarming. So that doesn't add up either. All right, number three, these kinds of events reinforce the idea that you have to listen to the government and you have to evacuate when they tell you you have to. By the way, it's not required. Now, you can stay in your house, even in an evacuation. The only time would be if you are putting someone else at risk. So I don't know exactly how they interpret that, but these evacuation orders, kind of like the mandatory cocktail requirements and the mandatory suffocation devices, they're not mandatory. So you have a right to stay, and as long as you are not calling for those to come help you, and you probably would have the right to do that as well. But it does reinforce the idea of these, FEMA camps and FEMA to the rescue and the federal government to the rescue. So listen to the government, listen to the powers that be. I'm going to do what they tell me. And especially if they're making me afraid. All right, I'm going to turn that off for a second. And also with that notion of the evacuations, these events restrict people's movement. So right now, we've had fires in California in very popular tourist areas, just like Maui is having their fires. Interesting, isn't it, that the two main cities on the West Coast were the ones that were on fire? Very interesting. So in California, Yosemite was on fire a year or two ago. And then we had Death Valley, which, believe it or not, is a destination, Mojave Desert, and other areas that have been. Gatlinburg comes to mind in, I think that's Tennessee or Kentucky. That was a few years ago. Also crazy raging fire. Look at that. Do some research. You'll see that it doesn't add up, just like all of this doesn't add up. So restricting people's movement, not only are tourists not going to want to travel to those areas, but even those residents that would go there, visit, they are restricted. That completely conditions people to listen to the government. Well, we can't go there because they're telling us that we can't travel. So that feeds right into the New World Disorder agenda, as I call it, because as we know, the gender is one of their main points as well. These events further destroy the economy, especially of small businesses. Look at the number of small businesses that were destroyed in Lahaina, although some people said, the eyewitnesses and people that lived there said that a lot of those had gone out of business because of the, fake, phony, fraudulent hogwash that was sloshed all over them a couple of years ago. And so they weren't really going to rebuild there anyway. Somebody else brought up the possibility that there might have been some kind of insurance fraud or insurance payback if maybe whoever owned the actual building, they weren't getting the lease payments because those places were empty. So who knows? Often these events serve more than one effect. But the fact that small businesses are being harmed, the restaurants, the jewelry stores, the ice cream shops, the New World Disorder maniacs are applauding this, in my view. Number 6, this really demoralizes people. I think people just naturally and understandably are going to have a type of PTSD. They're going to have a heightened sense of worry and anxiety. It's called being on, like you're on high alert. It's a hypervigilance where every little sound, every little something, you're on edge. And this is a very negative effect that can be very long lasting. And so number 7 goes along with instilling fear and terror. I see this as a type of terrorism. And oh my gosh, you lovely, healthy Americans gave me so many great phrases and descriptions. I'll have to bring that up to you in another video where I asked you, what can we call the arsonist that might be, I need to put a little space between my words here for the algorithm, just perhaps from the government. So I came up with the word government torchbearers. I don't think that will trip any algorithms. And someone else said Garsonist, like the government Garsonist. I love that. So these Garsonists, it's so sad to realize that this could be happening. And I also want to say that I personally don't have the proof, but what I'm seeing is overwhelming evidence. There's a lot of information that's coming out, and we're seeing these patterns again and again. We're seeing the code words that I'm going to bring to you in an upcoming video. Wait until I show you some connections between this word swift and the word fire. You may think it's far-fetched, but I am connecting the clots. So there are people that are emailing me saying, Peggy, you've got it all wrong. There were massive winds, and the winds can knock down the power lines, and then the power lines can start on fire. And you're absolutely right. That can happen. What I'm concerned about is the widespread destruction. The fact that this happened at night, and another healthy American told me that the winds are usually calmer at night, and fires don't spread as much at night as they do during the day, which is something that is just in fire science. So that was very suspicious as well. All of that will go in my upcoming video about things that don't add up. The bottom line is, whether it's from the Arsonist, the government torchbearers, or some kind of other reason, it still instills fear and terror in the population. Many people have left California because they cannot tolerate being a sitting duck, wondering if their neighborhood is going to go up next. And it's not like the old days, right? I've lived my life in California with a few years out here and there. But when I was let's say, 11, 12 years old, I remember these Santa Ana winds. We even called them Santana winds. And we would say, uh-oh, that's the fire. We have to be on fire alert. And that was usually in September, October, November. That was it. And these were actual wildfires that were put out after however many acres. And the number one thing that firefighters did is they would protect they would protect life, and then they would protect the structures. The number one thing was to protect the homes. I did not see any firefighters on the scene on Maui. I did not see a truck. I did not see any water. I did not see any water being dropped. People said, well, it was too windy. They couldn't have the helicopters. Well, we saw helicopters taking footage. We saw drones taking footage while it was burning. So why could planes not be flying? We were told that planes were hijacking, the word came to mind, that they were airlifting people to another island, Oahu, for their medical treatment for burns. And we actually did confirm that that happened. So why could not they have been dropping the water? I did not see any of that. It was almost as if they stood down. I don't understand it. I never saw that as a child, a teenager growing up. It was always the firemen were on the scene, and these were very contained fires. You never saw structures burning in a neighborhood. It just didn't happen. It literally would be a wildfire out in the open. And maybe there was a barn or something, but you never saw whole neighborhoods be decimated down to rubble where nothing was standing, no porcelain, bathtub. And you certainly didn't see plastic trash bins unmelted. So these things don't add up. I'll cover that in more detail. Let's go on to number 8. These kinds of events, whether it's floods or hurricanes or earthquakes or tornadoes, or in this case, the fires, it increases insurance rates. There's no doubt about it. In California, homeowners insurance companies are pulling up and leaving. They are not insuring people again. And if they do, the rates are going sky high. In California, if you're in a fire area, then you have to have additional fire insurance on top of your regular homeowners insurance. So what does that feed? Why are the New World Disorder maniacs applauding that? Well, maybe only the government will be the sole provider of those insurance contracts. And guess what? You're not going to have any free market type of competition. They are going to provide it. It will probably be the bare minimum. And anytime the government does anything, it seems like they do it much worse and never as good, in my experience, as the free market does. All right, number 9 out of our 12 toxic side effects that the New World Disorder is applauding. This can lead to a decrease in home ownership. Remember, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Think about the rise in Airbnb over the many years here. That's kind of interesting, sort of conditioning people to live in other people's homes, to rent a room in other people's homes, conditioning the homeowners themselves to open their homes to strangers. Now, I've done Airbnb. I've had some very pleasant experiences, but it got me thinking, wow, what could be behind this? Maybe someday the government now knows who's on Airbnb, so they know that you have an extra room. And whether it's the immigrants or those that are displaced by these events, they may be saying at first, just like the cocktails, oh, it's just voluntary. And maybe later it will be mandatory, maybe even passed by law, that if you have an extra room, you're going to make it available to someone else. Think about in California, they call it ADU. That's called additional dwelling unit. I think that's what it stands for. And they passed a law whereby basically you can just fill up your entire backyard if you want to with one of these, and then you can have a mini ADU, a junior ADU. And as long as your own sewer system or septic tank can handle it, you will get the permits likely to build. Why? They want higher density. They want people squished in, and they want you, the homeowner, to now house other people. So Why? Because you will own nothing and be happy. So the other people are going to need a place to live. They love that. And that goes on with number 10. Possibly this will encourage people, or they will get a financial incentive to move into the rabbit hutches. All right. Why do I call it rabbit hutches? They're also called stack 'em and pack 'em. I don't know if you have that where you live, but in Southern California, they are ruining the small towns, right? Where I live, like Laguna Niguel, all this area in Orange County, I would call them small towns. And although one kind of, blends into the other, you don't have a clear demarcation in terms of, driving from one little town to another, it's pretty built out, but they started using every square inch of available space and putting up these giant high rises, a lot of them in old shopping malls and also along near the railroad tracks. Why? Well, how easy is that? With one flip of the switch, all the electricity goes out. With one flip of the switch, you don't leave your door. You don't leave your hutch because they can lock you in. They can certainly lock in your cars in the underground parking. So I personally steer clear of that. The New World Disorder applauds it. All right, number 11, the government can take control of the land and then deem it off limits. I don't know if that's going to happen on Maui. I don't know. Likely in Paradise, California, they probably are going to use that maybe for a railroad or something. I don't have all of the information. Speaking of Paradise, I will play a video for you tomorrow where one of the newscasters says, oh, on Maui, it looks like what happened in Paradise, California all over again. And I thought to myself, he's speaking the truth, because it is exactly like Paradise, California, where that is not normal. It's not natural. It defies the physics of fire. It was, in my view, a targeted hit. And if you are not familiar with what that means, I want you to do some research on Lockheed Martin and on Raytheon, and you're going to put in DEW, right? How do they do it? So I also find that very unsettling, because they're using the word dew, like dew on the grass, which they basically want to get rid of. Certainly in California, because you don't have any grass. It's the best thing for the planet, and they want you to get rid of it and instead use concrete and rocks because, global warming. All right, number 12, finish up here. Cities and states now can build back better with their own diabolical plans that come from the UN. And what a coinky dink. Hawaii is like on, the front line, the starting line for these sustainable development goals from the United Nations. So it all fits in perfectly. I really want you to watch the previous 2 videos that I did, especially the first one. It's a little shorter. And actually, I think it's well, both of them are very important. The second one, I think, is where I dig into the background of the US Congresswoman, who also is all about this. Some of you said, look at the expressionlessness of their faces. They look like their eyes are dead. I don't know if they are zombies, if they are under mind control, or if they have just given over their soul to the devil, but they do not look upset by all of this. They look like they're reading from scripts. And I'm not talking about the transcasters. I'm talking about the actual public serpents who should be bringing more information about exactly what went on. All right, I'm going to end up here, friends. This is intended to answer the question that many of you asked me, Peggy, why would they be doing this? I don't understand why. I just gave you 12 reasons why. I'd love to hear yours. Leave a comment for me. Thank you, everybody, for being on board. I will be back with you tomorrow. We are going to look at a couple of things. Number 1, things that don't add up. And then number 2, I'm going to do a deep dive on Josh Green, the governor, and we're going to look at what his agenda is in all of this. All right, friends, thank you so much for being on board. Remember, we will get through this. God has gifted you with certain gifts and talents for you to stand strong, to persevere, to not live in fear or anxiety. When you have this information, you're more empowered. Living in ignorance actually leaves you weaker. So this is why I want to bring this information to you. We will get through it, and we'll get through it with God's help. Please know that I'm praying for you, and I'm praying for all of those that have been affected by these horrendous events. And I look forward to brighter days ahead. I know they're out there. See you soon, everybody.